Hello and welcome to another brand new episode of Dingers and Stingers, the podcast that is the one seed. Broncos, Seahawks, locking it up in week 18. We'll talk about wild card weekend where two of our teams who are in the playoffs will not be involved. We will talk about the last couple teams that got eliminated from playoffs in the regular season. We will talk about, we'll go to fan corner and talk about our teams a little bit more. Then we'll talk about them in the wild card segment. I'm Dallas. That's Drew. That's Matt. And this is our NFL show for this week, this wild card week. Week 18 is in the books. The regular season is in the books, and we are on to playoffs. So, week 18, it was fun for some, not fun for others, boring for some as well, as, not a lot of teams were playing for a ton, but there were a lot of impactful situations, which we went over in our episode last week. And so now this week we get to see the results. So, as we always do, though, let's start our NFL episode with a quick recap of week 18. We'll go around the league and give you the winners and losers from the last week of the regular season. So, here we go. In case you missed it, the winners were the Buccaneers. Surely they made it to the playoffs then, right? Right? The Seahawks, the Texans, the Giants, the Browns, the Falcons, Vikings, Jaguars, Rams, Broncos, Raiders, Patriots, Commanders, Lions, Bills, and Steelers. The losers were the Panthers, the Niners, Colts, Cowboys, Bengals, Saints, Packers, Titans, Cardinals, Chargers, Chiefs, Dolphins, Eagles, Bears, Jets, and Ravens. So there you go. In case you missed it, that's who won and who lost in week 18. Did you guys watch much of week 18? Were you just watching your teams? What of the action did you guys see, and how did it make you feel?
I watch every game, every I healthy or not, I do. Um, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of boring games, as is the last week of any NFL season, but there was also a lot of really great games with a lot of intrigue and a lot of significance and meaning. And for the most part, these games kind of went exactly how you thought for a week 18. Like a lot of the teams that should have won did the thing and got the job done and finished it out, barring a few exceptions, of course. But overall, I mean, we saw a lot of teams, bottom feeder teams get kind of lit up. Um, I would argue like the big surprise being the Raiders beat the Chiefs, but even then, I mean, the Chiefs are playing their third string quarterback. It's not like they're some premier team at this point. So yeah, I mean, it was a week of the football season, to be certain.
Yeah, I mean it was fun. You take it as a whole, obviously a lot of it meaningless. Who cares? Who's even trying kind of games, but um there was an awful lot of games that meant an awful lot this weekend, and they were fun to watch, even if they weren't as I'll say most of them maybe didn't live up to the billing in terms of entertainment value. There was certainly one that did. But yeah, it was kind of fun to be kind of locked into various matchups, and like even if ultimately it was kind of an anticlimactic winner in all the scenarios, it was fun to have something to pay attention to in the last week of the season.
Yeah, it was nice. Just checking in with what I wanted to check in on. Like I was watching Red Zone a little bit, got to check in on some of the matchups that meant something to other teams. Loved watching the Falcons Saints game. That was always great to watch them do that to a division rival, whatever, who someone was going to do something to their division rival in that game. That makes the hatred grow stronger. So that was fun to watch. Um, the Jaguars game was interesting just because Cam Ward, went out early in the game, and so the Jaguars just kind of put it on him. And that, of course, impacted the Texans game. We didn't see starters for the second half of that game. So, it was one of those things where you got to see the dominoes fall in real time, and it was kind of cool. So, let's move on to talk about a couple of teams that, well, I was going to say, but it's not true. One team that lost their game and one team that didn't, but still finds themselves on the outside looking in when it comes to the playoffs. We're going to go to our In Memoriam segment for this week. If you're not familiar, this is our segment where we just talk a little bit about all the teams that were eliminated from playoff contention in the last week. So in week 18, there were two teams that were eliminated. Well, again, one by virtue of losing their game and one by virtue of winning their game and then having the wrong team win another game. So first, we're going to talk about the team that lost. On Sunday Night Football, the Baltimore Ravens fell to the Pittsburgh Steelers and find themselves out of playoffs. And so Drew has notes on the Ravens. Why did they not make it this far?
Yeah, well, there's two answers to this. There's the immediate, they could have won this game answer, and then there's, the full season. But this game is the one I was kind of alluding to earlier that lived up to the billing. It was the Sunday night game. It was like, what, 13-10 in the fourth quarter at one point, and then it just kind of turned into a shootout, back and forth, touchdowns. Lamar Jackson had a couple really remarkable Lamar Jackson-esque plays. Aaron Rodgers kind of put on that vintage Aaron Rodgers and drove down the field. There was missed extra point, a missed field goal. It was all sorts of things. So ultimately, what happened to the Ravens is they had a brutal opening stretch to the season, both on paper and then what the results ended up being. They were 1-5 to start the year. I remember Matt talking about that and saying, well, if they make the playoffs at this point, they are a statistical anomaly because you just can't start that slow and typically make the playoffs. They could have in the end if they would have won this game or, a couple of the ones they lost down the stretch. They still could have done it, but ultimately just really slow out of the gate. They had a nice hot stretch. The division was bad enough that they kind of stuck around. And then they just had some brutal losses to end the season. A couple to the Steelers, one to the Bengals, one to the Patriots, and it sank them overall. But I do think of all the teams that missed the playoffs, this is, among the very best. So it's not the same, it's not the same tier as all these teams we've talked about for weeks and weeks. But that really plays into what they have to look forward to. And we got the news today, a few hours ago, that they fired John Harbaugh. So, he was one of the longest tenured head coaches. Was he the longest at this point? Or he was up there?
17 years, I believe.
Yeah, been there forever. He won the Super Bowl with them. He's been to the playoffs so many times. And, we got the vibe that it was maybe just time for a change for both sides. So we'll see where he lands. We'll talk about him more, I'm sure, maybe in a future episode. But yeah, that's a big move, a big change. I'm very curious to see if they go in the direction of let's get some kind of, offensive mastermind, like the Sean McVays, Kyle Shanahan's of the world. And like really unlock Lamar Jackson and turn this team into the Lamar Jackson show even further, or maybe they go back to their roots and what made them successful in the past and get a defensive-minded guy who can really turn the Ravens back into the Ravens that we've come to know. I don't know. They have a bright future as long as Lamar Jackson is there. I know there's been, always little whispers about him being unhappy, but if they can build around him, that's a start that most teams can't match. He's probably the most talented quarterback in the NFL. And it's a team that historically has, made the right moves and played well. So I'm not calling this like time to blow everything up, but I'm interested to see what direction they head in. And I think Ravens fans, as long as Lamar Jackson is there, there's some reason to be excited.
100%. With John Harbaugh leaving, it reminded me of a little bit of when the Seahawks fired Pete. It's just was he the worst? No, he wasn't the worst option for you.
This year he
but
was.
Maybe this year he did some bad stuff for sure that helped move the needle. But is he the worst? No, he's average at mostly. He's an okay coach. He won't make anything crazy happen, but he won't lose a bunch of games either. But the team, he's a guy who was been there a long time. He was way past the Super Bowl. That was a long time ago, that Super Bowl. And the team was stagnating. They weren't going to get back with him as a coach, I don't think. So it was time to go. And he'll probably, if he wants to, I'm sure he'll be able to be a coach next year somewhere. But whether he wants to take a break or not, that's up to him. But I'm sure he'll have an opportunity with somebody if he wants one. So one of those things. But yeah, it reminded me a little bit of that. It's had the same energy as that to me.
So I've seen rumors already that he may be like the front runner for the Giants job. So, I mean, we'll see, if we want to talk coaching next week, and I'm sure we'll see some moves or at least interviews by then.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely coming is a special in Memoriam segment for the fired coaches. We'll talk, and of course in the off season, we'll talk about which jobs are most attractive, as they remain open, things like that. These head coaching jobs are not ones that are typically filled too quickly after the Super Bowl is over. There's usually at least a couple weeks or a few weeks before the first one gets full. So hopefully we'll be able to hit all of the open spots and see where we think coaches might want to go. And some coordinators fired too, so we might even get to them. All right, so that's the Ravens. Yeah, they couldn't climb all the way back up from the pit that they found themselves in around week 6 or 7. So unfortunately, they almost got there, but that game was just a nightmare. It was a nightmare because it wasn't very entertaining or good for the first 3.5 quarters. And then it was a nightmare because as soon as the Ravens popped off on offense, the Steelers decided to do the same thing and to match them blow for blow. And then it all came down to the missed kick. So very strange, but also fun way to end the regular season. But as for the Ravens, 2025, we have to say goodbye. Hopefully next year with your fresh start, you'll be able to come back and get ready to go. So let's go ahead and move on to the other team that was eliminated, the team that was also fighting for their division. They did what they had to do. The Bucs, they won the game against the Panthers, but they needed the Saints to win as well. And they did not. So the Panthers moved on, even though they lost the game. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have been eliminated, and Matt has the notes on the Bucs.
Yeah, I mean, as I was looking and like kind of thinking about this Bucks season, I was trying to come up with some like cause of death, like what caused the Bucks to be in the position that they were, and inevitably to fall out of playoffs. And I gotta be honest, I like can't think of one that's like clear and obvious. Like I thought for a while, getting healthy would be the thing that kind of fixed the team. They spent a good chunk of the season without Chris Godwin, without Mike Evans. Um, and they lost Jalen McMillan, and that was when Emeka Egbuka was popping off. But then they got those guys back, and the offense just felt flat. They spent the time without Bucky Irving as well. Um, and they got healthy, and it still felt flat. And the defense, they had some injuries this year, but ultimately at the end of the season, I mean, they were healthy too, and yet their defense just also felt like they were underperforming. It felt like guys who in the past had dominated their certain, skill sets. Vita Vea was widely considered maybe the best nose tackle in football. Um, I haven't heard a peep about him this year, and I mean, I'd have to dig in further, but like, I feel like usually he's being talked about as this all-pro guy. Jamel Dean is usually one of the more top-end corners in the league. Haven't heard much good news about him. Antoine Winfield, usually he's making highlight plays everywhere. Haven't heard much about him. So it's one of those weird things where I felt like the team was there, the team was healthy, and yet something was wrong, right? And down the stretch, Baker didn't look like the Baker we've grown accustomed to the last few years, the guy who's kind of just this clutch gunslinger. It felt like he was overthrowing his receivers. He was throwing picks. He was just making mistakes that Baker doesn't usually make. So it's an interesting predicament they're in because, you know, typically the past few years, this exact roster has been good enough to not only make the playoffs, but usually dominate this division. And for them to not do that this year is, I would argue, concerning. But then, on the same, or the different side of the coin, the other side of the coin, that is still something to look forward to. This is essentially still the same roster that dominates this division and makes the playoffs. Sometimes there are just fluky years. Sometimes your rhythm gets all out of sorts due to, any number of reasons. Um, but at the end of the day, they are still a good team. And I think you could argue they are still the more one, if not the more, one of the more talented rosters in the NFC South. I think it'd be not foolish, but you'd be hard pressed to convince me that they're not the more talented roster in the NFC South right now. But sometimes talent doesn't matter. I mean, I picked the Ravens as my preseason Super Bowl team, and I said they're the most talented roster in football. And look at them now, eliminated all the same.
There's bad luck this year with us picking Baltimore teams to
Yeah,
make
you
it
picked the
far.
Orioles.
I
Yeah, it's
always
tough.
forget. I always forget to associate those two with each other because their energy is so like diametrically
Polar
opposed to
opposite.
each other in my head. Like in my head, they do not play in the same city, but they for sure do, and that is devastating for me to hear that and remember that because
I
that
think
those fans are going through it.
Getting
I
to
think
root
if
for
the Ravens were in the AFC East instead of the AFC North, I think we would associate them more together because the AL East is the Orioles.
yeah.
That's my hot take.
I'm like, yeah, the Ravens play in the North Baltimore. The Orioles play in the one that's east. They don't play in the same Baltimore. But yeah, so
It's the
yeah, that's crazy.
Kansas City vibes.
Yeah, soon to be flipped around on its
Soon
head.
to be Kansas
Yeah,
City.
yeah, soon to be flipped on its head. But yeah, Bucks. What a shame. I am remembering the week 3 or 4, whatever week that was, game against Seattle. How good that team looked. They won the game. The offense looked incredible, and uh, now we find ourselves here where all of this time later they're not even in the picture, which is crazy to think for a team that at any point had a player who was in the early MVP discussions and a player who was in the early offensive rookie of the year discussions to not even make the playoffs. It's kind of crazy. But for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it is unfortunately the end of the road for this season, but we will see you again next year, hopefully with a lot of similar faces, and you can come on back and try again. But enough about teams that are out. Let's talk about the
It's
teams
about
that
the
are,
losers.
yes, enough about the losers. And then I hate to belabor the point, but the winners who were forced to be losers. Um, but that NFC South is crazy for all time this year. Let's talk about the teams that are in. Wild card weekend is upon us, and we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 matchups to preview here, which is where we'll be spending the majority of the rest of our time here today on today's show. So we're just going to go through each matchup. We're going to talk about it a little bit. We'll give an X factor for the game from both of you, and then you'll both pick a winner. And that's how we're going to do each matchup. And then where the conversation goes is where it goes. But for this first matchup, I have a starting point in mind because it's just a general question that doesn't necessarily apply to this specific matchup, but one that could repeat itself perhaps in the future. But so we're going to start with
One that's
Rams.
also surprisingly been all three of our teams.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
are the
exactly.
3 teams in history to have done this.
At some point we have the Rams, the Broncos, and Seattle have been in this position, the position the Panthers are in right now. We're going to start with Rams and Panthers. So the Rams are going on the road to face the Panthers. Rams 12-5, Panthers 8-9. And if you're counting, that is more losses than wins. But they find themselves in a position to host a playoff game by virtue of the fact they won their division. So look, if it's 8-9, like hosting 9-8, or 8-9 hosting even 9-6, if that even tracks. Who knows?
Nice.
9-8, 10-6, or 10-7, whatever. You get what I mean. If it's a couple wins to separate them, I don't really care. It's all right. But an 8-9 team hosting a 12-5 team seems a little over the line to me. So that's where I want to start. Should this continue to be allowed, or do we need to do something about this?
Drew, I'll let you go first because I do have some thoughts for sure.
Yeah, I am of the belief that I guess if you just want a yes or no, I think no, this should not be how it is. How the current system is set up, I don't think it's right. I don't think it's fair. I would be more okay with, division winner, you get to make the playoffs. That's great. But then just reseed everyone once it comes to the actual, playoff field. Because, I mean, if the Rams or the 49ers or the Seahawks, for that matter, were in the NFC South, they run away with this division. It's not even a contest. And so to get, you get the reward of being in a bad division by being, the team that comes out on top of the scrap heap. But you shouldn't get the additional reward of like getting this team that was objectively much better than you. Although I guess maybe you could point to the head-to-head earlier in the year and dispute that somewhat. But like the Rams had a better year than the Panthers. There's no doubt, and yet it's the Rams that have to travel across the country and play a road game. I think I get it. There's plenty of times where life's not fair. Sports aren't always fair. There was a great moment where Marshawn Lynch ran for, an all-time legendary touchdown because the Seahawks got to be the home team despite this kind of rule. At the end of the day, I just want sports to be like as balanced as possible in terms of outside factors and just let the best teams win. And so I think you should reward the better teams by giving them the home field. That's my take on the situation. And we'll talk, when I get to my prediction for this, I'll talk more about why that might matter.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. I absolutely see the point of rewarding division winners. I think if you don't give a reward to division winners, you got to dig deeper than that and scrap divisions, right? Like if there's nothing to be said about the division you play in, like you don't get anything for it, there shouldn't be divisions. And I don't agree with that setup. Especially for football, I don't agree with that setup. But yeah, I think it would be easy enough, right, to say like, okay, there will be a playoff team from every division, and once we get to playoffs, then best team on top, and it just goes in a cascading order. I don't think that's too difficult, and at the end of the day, like you gotta, I don't know, it's like you gotta earn your spot a little bit because it's exactly like you said. You can put legitimately any other team from the playoffs in the NFC this year into the NFC West, and they are the last place team. At the end of the day, any team that isn't already in the NFC West, you put them in the NFC West this year, they are the last place team. And so there would be no reward. And so I think it is just one of those things where it's like, we definitely need to not need, but like it would be fun to see them tinker with this idea or at least play around with it because it is crazy that last year we saw this with Minnesota, right? You win 14 games and you have to go on the road just because you go play a division winner, and like that worked out in our favor 1 billion trillion times, but like that still felt wrong. And we weren't as bad as Carolina. Like we were good. We won our division. And yet they had to come travel to us. Um, so I feel that, it's one of those weird things, but at the end of the day, it is also, how it's been done for a long time. And you lose out on a lot of cool moments um, by switching away from this. And when I say a lot, I can think of literally two, but still, like that Beast Quake moment is maybe one of the most legendary NFL moments ever. You think about I believe it was the 2011 Broncos, the team that was like 500. Yeah, and their overtime win against the Steelers. That's another case like this where they are so severely worse than the team they played, but they hosted and they end up making this amazing play, in overtime, Demaryius Thomas on the slant, like
Mhm.
just one of the coolest plays. And it's like you do forever just get rid of that, right? Like you don't get that environment. You don't get the underdog team packing out the house still. Um, so
That
I
one's a
don't
double
know.
whammy too, because Ryan Clark specifically couldn't play in Denver because of the altitude. It was like every time the Steelers came to Denver, Ryan Clark couldn't play. Well, maybe if you had another your starting safety out there, maybe that doesn't happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. The home field advantage literally changes the outcome, right? Like, and so that's what I think is interesting. And we preview this game, and I'm sure we're about to jump into more specifics, but like, I'll transition, I'll segue. My X factor for this game is the weather. It is the rain. Um, it was absolutely a factor the last time we played. Stafford, I only believe, has one lost fumble this year, and it was in that Carolina game where it was raining. Um, and you start to look at the forecast for this game, it's supposed to be worse. The rain is supposed to be even more heavy and even more wet. And that is part of what I think is the redemptive factor of this, right? Is it allows an underdog team to still kind of like edge out this little cool um advantage, right? Like when Denver does it, like that's a cool home field advantage. When a team like this that plays in an open air, you think about like if this was the Packers or the Bears or any of the teams in the AFC North, it's like some of those outdoor Buffalo, if this was the case with one of those teams, you would get this kind of advantage because you're not going to go play at SoFi in some sterile air conditioned stadium. You go and play in the weather and in the elements, and it kind of gives that like nostalgic football feel. Um, because football inherently is a fall and winter sport. Like there's going to be weather, it's going to be cold. And I think there's something to that like I would be bummed if we were to miss out on that. But yeah, my X factor for this game is going to be the weather and the rain. I am worried about it. The Rams historically are not a great weather team. Um, we're not terrible, but like it usually impacts us and our outcomes. So I'll be curious to see if we can kind of figure that out.
Yeah, I had a similar X factor because I put home field advantage, and that was kind of my meaning behind it. It wasn't so much like the fans. I don't think that really, against a quarterback like Stafford, who's been there, done that. I don't think that really is going to swing things too much, but the weather certainly can. Um, and I think if you take the two quarterbacks in this game, it's Bryce Young, it's Matt Stafford. Well, who benefits more from a game where you're just having to hand the ball off and do little check downs and things like that versus, attacking downfield more? Bryce Young for sure benefits from that game plan. So I think that's real reason for concern from the Rams. We saw this game about a month ago. In the regular season, and it was a close game, but the Panthers came out on top. But to diverge from Matt a little bit, I have like a little bonus X factor, and that's the Vegas odds makers, because the Panthers have not won a game all year in which they were favored, and the Rams are currently favored to win this game. So I think that it's another little box to check in favor of the Panthers for this one. So um,
Let me let
Rams,
me let me let me jump in on this because let me tell you something. Let me learn you something here. I'm jumping all over the place on this breakdown. My fan corner literally says, I'm excited, got the 5 seed, but the Panthers have history on their side. And let me tell you, I've had to get off of the internet today because of the amount of things telling me it's like a historical fact that the Rams are going to lose this game.
Is this the
It
J-Lo?
is no, it's not even like some weird like thing like that. It is literally so the three teams that have ever come in with a losing record and a negative point differential, right? There's three teams that have ever done it. All three of our teams, all three of them won their wild card game. Matthew Stafford, he is 0-4 in road wild card games in his career. If you look at, there was some other thing that was also talking about the fact, like, um, that was talking about the fact that, like, oh, what was it? What was it? I'm not even gonna remember now. My brain got flustered. But there's all these there's all these things, and right, like something like the Vegas thing, where it's like every game that Carolina won this year was a game that they were not favored in, and that's the big scary is they were getting swept by teams like the Saints, and then they were going out and whooping up on the Falcons, whooping up on the Bills, beating the Rams, like they were going out and playing really good teams really well, and oh man, I wish I could be more confident. I mean, we arguably are the best team this year if you just look at the efficiency numbers, if you look at the PFF grades, if you look at the EPAs and per game averages. I mean, we're one, two, or three in everything, pretty much, across the season. And yet I'm looking at this Panthers team led by fucking Bryce Young, and I'm scared, dude. Like, we're talking before you hopped on, me and Dallas, and I was like, there's only two teams that I genuinely am not confident about beating. It was the Seahawks, who I think we are just equally matched with, and it's the Panthers because for some reason they have this little aura of like being a little Destiny's Child. Like they've just got this vibe of they're gonna be the was it 2008 Giants or whatever that beat undefeated Brady. Like they have that vibe to them of like, man, they're kind of terrible and weren't good at football, but come playoffs, like there's just a little juice here. And I think the even bigger factor to all this is I'm really scared of having to have to text Elijah a lot. Um, for those of you who don't know, Elijah, once again, he gets brought up quite a bit. Our resident Panthers fan, I guess. He has talked about the pounding that will occur this weekend in so many ways. He texts me at 4 a.m. a random tweet, and it's just some guy who's like, "Keep pounding," and it's just the most mentally taxing experience I've ever had in a playoffs. I feel beat already. Like, I'm terrified, man. I'm so scared.
It's funny because you can't. I mean, it's bad to have a playoff matchup where your favorite team is playing someone that you don't think you'll beat because they're so good. That's bad. It's worse when it's like, I know this team isn't good, but I also know they can beat us. Um, but to get to the prediction part of it, I'm not a Rams fan, so I'm going to sit here and say the Rams are going to win this game. The Panthers are not good. They've lost 4 out of their last 6 games. They lost the game that if they would have won, it meant they had the division. No, like funny business about it. They lost that one. They they aren't like
No,
like
they're not that good.
compared to the Rams. I'm just like they're good enough to be like a thorn in someone's side, but the Rams are the Rams. They have Matt Stafford. I think they can find a way to win this game. And it might be ugly, but I think the Rams are going to come out on top, and the Panthers are going to be an interesting trivia question 10 years from now.
I mean, and all that's valid, and truly, truly, I hope that you are right. Um, for a winner, I can't pick. I can't get myself to pick this game. Um, because no matter what I pick, I'm wrong. And so I'm going to say the winner of this is the Seahawks. I'm going to say the winner of this game is Dallas. Because you get to watch us rise. Like, win or lose, you kind of get to watch the Rams your greatest threat, writhe in agony as we deal with the upcoming, like, man, we are the best team in football this year, and we are not confident about beating the worst playoff team.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch how this game turns out for me because yeah, I think the Rams are going to win as well. I think they'll figure it out. Good teams in the playoffs, they figure it out. But you know, there'll be part of me that, if it starts and like, the Rams go maybe like 6 and out, not 3 and out. Maybe they go 6 and out. And then the Panthers come back and they kick a field goal or something. I'll be like, all right, stop the count. It's over. Like they've got the Rams on the ropes, so it'll be fun to watch. But yeah, I think
That
we
hashtag keep
we're gonna be
pounding
good there.
text from you is going to be devastating.
Yeah, you better watch out. All right. So that is Rams and Panthers. The fan, this goes for all the playoffs since it applies to all of us at some point. Uh, the fan of the team, if we're previewing the game, does get a jinx pick the winner pass. That is fine. You do not have to pick a winner, but Drew's winner is the Rams, and so is mine. Okay. So next game, 49ers at Eagles. The Niners played themselves into the 6th seed by losing to Seattle on Saturday night. And the Eagles, held on to that 3. So they host the 49ers here. So I don't have a starting point for this game, so let's just get into X factors and see what we talk about.
Yeah. X factor for me in this game is going to come down to the battle of the running backs, right? This is two of the most dominant run deep teams in football over the last, give or take 3, 4, 5 years. Um, and we've got two guys who people could argue are the two best running backs in football. Obviously, other guys have a say in that as well. But like when you're just talking about pure dominance, I mean, CMC, Saquon Barkley, these are like the cream of the crop, right? These are the top dogs. And both of them in a weird way feel like they've had down seasons, even though I know Christian McCaffrey's had like a billion targets and receptions and all that. His run numbers and his rushing stats are really pedestrian. And same goes for Saquon, given what he did last year. And in a game like this, where both defenses have their issues that have kind of been exposed this year, it still feels like it falls on the offense of, can these run games, which is typically the part of offense that wins in the playoffs, can these run games finally come through? Can Saquon just take over a game like he did all of last playoffs? Can CMC, still be the dual threat, but can he actually be a consistent runner who is able to churn out yards? And, the record shows when Kyle Shanahan is able to rush the ball 30 times in a game, his win percentage is like 90+%. Like, and you don't get to run the ball 30 times a game if it's not efficient. It's just it backfires drastically. So yeah, it's really going to be interesting to see, I think, which of those two guys pulls through. But go Eagles.
Yeah, for me, my X factor is going to be Trent Williams with the 49ers. He missed that game on Saturday against Seattle, and I'm not saying he's the difference between a win and a loss in that particular game, but I do think he is a big reason why the 49ers were only able to score 3 points in that game. Because they had a late bye in week 14, and then after that, the offense just went off. Every week, they were scoring, right around 40 points. And then they go to Seattle, Seattle comes to them, and they can't do anything. So, credit to the Seahawks defense. Like, that's not anything against them, but I do think that Trent Williams playing, which it looks like he will be this week, is going to be a big difference for the 49ers offense. And I didn't pick an Eagles X factor because the Eagles, they're a talented enough team to be in this position where they are right now. But their vibes have not been right all season. And whether it's Super Bowl hangover, whether it's clubhouse stuff, I don't know. But I think this is the 49ers. This is the kind of game that they can definitely come in and win. And they've been doing it this year. It's been pretty impressive given every injury that they've had, how long they've been able to like stick around and be a pest. And I think the vibes in Philly are just bad right now. So I'm transitioning right into my pick. I'm going to pick the 49ers to win this one. I think a little bit of it's a fun playoff matchup. I feel like we've seen it 100 times over the years. Like these two teams just find a way of meeting each other in big games. But um, I think the Eagles just don't have the vibes this year. And I think the 49ers have enough to at least live to play another game.
Matt, what's your pick?
I'm picking the Eagles. I do just think when push comes to shove, like the Eagles are a team that have proven that they can do it in the playoffs, and they've done it recently. And yeah, I believe in this team. They have exactly the strength of their defense is typically the defensive strength that you need to dominate playoff runs, and that's interior pressure, solid edge rushers, good enough DBs. And the one thing that the 49ers are really lacking at this point is a solid front seven. Um, yeah, so I'm going Eagles, man. I do think they can pull this off. It's at home. That place is going to be rocking. So I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, we'll see if the Eagles offense is just a sleeping giant or if it's really dead this week, because the Bears were able to rush for 110 yards against San Francisco, and Seattle was able to rush for I think like 160 something against them last week. If Saquon can't get it going in this game against this defensive line, then the Eagles just I wouldn't want to move on if I was the Eagles, because there's no hope for you. And so I'll take the Eagles here too. I think I like the way that they match up in a game like this, where they can shorten the game with their run game. I think they can make it a shorter. They shorten the game as they say. Shorten the game. And I think that they can. Their defense is good enough to win a game like 13-10 or something stupid like that. And it's because they just keep the ball away from the 49ers for a long time. So, all right, next game, Packers traveling to Chicago to take on the division-winning Bears, the 2-seed Bears. So let's go into X factors for this game. Packers at Bears, what's going to make the difference here?
Yeah, I think for me, the X factor for the Bears is going to come down to, can they kind of get over the Packer hump, right? Like it's been kind of an ongoing bit that the Packers own the Bears, and it doesn't matter who the quarterback is, the Packers own the Bears. And they've had some wins, and there, of course, it's not like it's some like crazy slanted rivalry like 40-0 in the past 20 years. But it is just like, they have a history of not beating the Packers. And this is a new coach, and this is pretty much a new quarterback and a new team. And, can they get over that hump? Can they kind of break the curse, if you will, and kind of beat the team who's dominated this division mostly for the last, again, 20 years? This has consistently been one of the best teams in the NFL, let alone the NFC North. And the Bears are a little bit new on the block recent. It's been a long time since they've been a heavy hitter in the playoffs. So, yeah, I think the X factor just comes down to the mentality of it. Can they get the monkey off their back? Because if they can do that, this is a team that could win it all, straight up. And, that was the Rams a few years ago with San Francisco. We hadn't beat Kyle Shanahan in years, and we beat them in the playoffs. And then after that, it was like, look out, dude, if we can beat him in playoffs, we can beat anybody. And I do wonder if that'll be that kind of mentality for the Bears as well.
Yeah, there's certainly a mystique with these NFC North matchups. I think in particular these two teams, you just imagine frozen ground and running the ball and steam coming out of these players' noses, and they're playing each other. It's a good time. My X factor is going to be Ben Johnson, the Bears head coach, rookie head coach. He's had a great year, definitely a candidate for coach of the year. Um, he deserves a lot of credit for how well Caleb Williams has played this year, and I mean Caleb deserves credit as well for being uber talented and all that. But I think I'm really excited to see him in his first game as a head coach in the playoffs, because this Packers team has kind of looked ever since that game against Denver where um, Micah Parsons went out. They just have not looked the same. They haven't had the same spark. They haven't had the same drive. They haven't won since then. They did have that game with the Bears right after that where Malik Willis played really well coming off the bench, and but then Caleb Williams just kind of had a miracle comeback, and the Bears won, and it felt just like ever since then the Bears have had the vibes and the Packers haven't. And I know the history here, but it's new faces in this era of Bears Packers, and I think the Bears are the better team right now, and I think if Ben Johnson can prove he can also be the better coach, I think they have a real great shot. And I'm taking the Bears in this one. I just don't think the Packers' vibes have been up there. And if the Packers do win, it'll be because of some kind of crazy, they're just the Chicago fans can't have nice things situation. But I am picking the Bears in this one.
Yeah, I picked the Bears as well. I do think that they are the better team at this point. I am a big Caleb Williams believer, and I mean their offense has looked multifaceted. And yeah, you lose Micah Parsons, your defense becomes pretty suspect for the Packers. And do we think potentially less than 100% Jordan Love can keep pace with this Bears offense? We're gonna find out.
Yeah, who's to say, this offense can go crazy for the Bears if you let it. And, the Packers aren't really in that much of a position right now to not let it. And so I think that, you get the offense coming in on a heater and, something of a heater. They played kind of last week and stuff, but, something of a heater and you have a problem, if you're the Packers. So, everything is pretty much, feels like it's stacked against Green Bay here, but who knows? I think coach on Green Bay side, he's no slouch. LaFleur over there, he knows what he's doing too, and he's got experience. Jordan Love does too. And so, uh, and it's division opponents, like it's division rivals. So it's like these division games, they always have a little something extra on it. But I think I'll take the Bears too at the end of the day. But okay, let's go to the AFC now. The NFC is over. We have gone over all those. So let's move over to the AFC side of the bracket here. And let's start with the last game of the weekend, which will be Texans at Steelers. So let's go straight to X factors here. And what do we think will be the determining factor in this game?
Yeah, my X factor here is, and I didn't really put this together, but I saw a tweet about it from Devin Lloyd, the middle linebacker of the Jaguars. This is the number one run offense versus the number one run defense for season totals going against each other. And so it is a true strength on strength matchup. We don't often get to see true number one versus number ones. They say in playoffs, typically the defense wins, but we'll see, man. I mean, it is still Josh Allen, it is still Superman, and the Jaguars have kind of this taboo vibe when it comes to playoff runs. Um,
Time out.
but at the end of the day,
Did I
Yeah.
tee up Bills and Jaguars
I was
on
lost
accident?
too. You did
Oh
not.
no, I didn't.
Matt,
Okay, so
I think
we're
Matt
talking Texans,
forgot to listen.
Texans and Steelers. Texans and
I
Steelers is
scrolled and I
the
just had it at the top of my thing.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So
Because I
So
was
yeah,
like,
so I'm
wait,
gonna go ahead and
who's
keep
the
talking about them.
I was like, the Steelers are the number one run offense? That's crazy. Like,
I was like, that is crazy. I was
Believing
about
that
to.
the Texans would be the number one run offense would be crazy.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I either way. I was trying to
Either.
put that together.
That's awesome.
That's so funny. My bad. I totally
Okay.
jumped that in the thing. I didn't even see the game above that.
So yeah. Uh,
Um,
so yeah, Texans
Texans
and Steelers.
Steelers, everybody.
I mean, what do we think?
Um,
The number one rush offense versus the number one rush
well,
defense, as we all know.
yeah, I mean, Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell have been one of the gnarliest duos in football, honestly, all season.
That's
So,
true.
you know,
That's
that
true.
holds
They
up.
have been gnarly to look
That
at.
holds
Yes.
up. And let me tell you, the Texans, I would say, are arguably the number one defense. So maybe my point still stands.
That's why it almost
Just a
worked.
different
That's
time
why it
frame.
took me. That's why it took me until you mentioned Josh Allen by name to stop the conversation, because I was like, you know what, I buy it, and then it had to stop.
You're like,
But yes, go ahead.
yeah, and I mean, an Arthur Smith offense, you could totally see it. Yeah, Texans and Steelers. I think this is going to be just a defensive battle. At the end of the day, the Steelers got in on the back of some offensive explosiveness in that last game against the Ravens, but I think that's more an indictment on the Ravens' defensive performance this year than it is the Steelers' offensive performance. They will get DK Metcalf back, and there's three corners on the Texans that I would trust to lock up DK Metcalf. I don't know that that's going to be a massive factor in this game. And so my X factor for this game was, which defense is going to actually show up and be that dominant playoff defense? Is it this season's dominant defense being the Texans, who start to finish maybe had the most consistent dominant defense in the league? Or is it going to be the historically great Steelers defense, who's had some issues this year? But at the end of the day, when you're talking about Cam Hayward, when you're talking about TJ Watt, these are still dudes who can absolutely flip a game plan in a heartbeat. And what was the Texans' big weakness this year? That the offensive line. It was their big weakness last year, and it's not worse, but it's definitely not like some great improvement they made. It is still kind of what I would say is their weakest point. And so if the Texans can figure out a way to stymie that pass rush, maybe they got that chance. But it's going to be a defensive slaughter. And since I said that, it's probably going to be like 32-28 end score. But I do think it's going to be just a defensive, just throwing punches, just haymakers. And I'll pick
Yeah.
the Bills.
Yeah.
I do think I know this might sound like a cop out because it was what Matt used for the Rams Panthers X factor, but I think it could be the weather in Pittsburgh. I mean, this is not as crazy of a flip, but the Steelers do have the worst record in this matchup, and they are hosting. They That is their advantage. If it's really really cold and the Houston guys are not used to it. Aaron Rodgers has been there, done that. He's not going to panic. If the game plan changes, things like that, then you could maybe talk me into some sort of chance for the Steelers here. But overall, I do think the Texans are the best team in this matchup. I think they have been playing awesome, and if it weren't for the Jaguars, they would be hosting a playoff game here. And I just don't think the Steelers are that great. I think it was, who survived the longest in the AFC North. It wasn't who is the best team in the AFC North that came out. So I think I'm going to pick the Texans here. I mean, if it turns into one of those real defensive slogs and it comes down to one score, that's where I would, consider giving the Steelers a chance. But if the Texans can move the ball at all, then they're going to win this thing.
Yep, I think it just comes down for me to which version of CJ Stroud shows up. He's a streaky guy. He can play very well, and if he can be in command of the offense and kind of run a halfway decent operation over there, the defense will be able to, I think, hold and be good. So I'll take Houston as well. Matt, did you want to say your real pick before we move on?
Yeah, my pick is the Texans. I think at the end of the day, this defense has played great against every team they've actually tried against. And so I don't believe that Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers and this team are cut out for modern football.
Yeah, they definitely feel they feel old, for sure. Even though the team around them, like maybe not, may not be very old, the team feels old, for sure. But okay, so all on the Texans. So Bills and Jaguars is our next matchup, and I know uh, Matt has some good thoughts here, so let's just jump right into it. What are the X factors for this game, Bills and Jaguars? This is probably going to be, if I was guessing which one would be the best game, maybe I would guess this one. Maybe.
Maybe. I mean, it might be the best game considering it's the best run offense versus the best run defense in the NFL. Um, Man, I don't even know how to go forward. I've already said my spiel. Man, it's Josh Allen though. At the end of the day, I think my X factor is the run game versus the run defense, um, for the Bills and Jaguars respectively. But it's still Josh Allen. I do believe the Bills come out on top here. I just think the playoff experience goes in their favor. Um, the hometown, the home field advantage shouldn't be too bad. I mean, Jacksonville doesn't have the craziest fan base. Weather should be a Florida-ish unless it's raining, in which case maybe the advantage still goes to the Bills, just knowing how to play in extreme weather. Um, yeah, I'm picking the Bills. X factor is going to be that run game. We'll see.
Yeah, to me, the X factor is going to be Josh Allen himself because this is his playoffs, right? I mean, it's been the storyline. There's no Patrick Mahomes, there's no Lamar Jackson, there's no Joe Burrow. In terms of quarterbacks in the AFC, it's Josh Allen and it's the field. And that's not to say any of these guys haven't had good years, but in terms of the legacy, Josh Allen has been one of the great quarterbacks in our game for a long time now, and he's never been able to get over the hump. And that has been almost exclusively a Chiefs shaped hump. And the Chiefs are not in here anymore. And so obviously there will be games beyond this one, but I think it's a real bummer that they couldn't win this in their division this year because now they have to go on the road and play the Jaguars. And it's a bummer that like a double bummer that the Patriots stayed as hot as they did and the Broncos as well because the Jaguars look like they are probably the best team in the AFC right now. They've been playing so hot, offense and defense. Everything's clicking. Trevor Lawrence has looked as good as he's looked in the NFL. The Jaguars just look like a really complete team right now. And so it comes down to do I trust the team or do I trust the superstar quarterback? And it's a real toss up. I could see this one going either way. Like Dallas said, this might be the best game of the weekend. I would say that would be my guess as well. I'm looking forward to it a lot. I do think it'll come down to the Jaguars being a more complete team, and I think ultimately they win, and they're going to be a nightmare matchup for whoever else they play en route to potential Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think I might have to. I just listened to a couple too many people who are very Jags pilled right now, and so I think I might have to go with the Jaguars myself as well. I think, yeah, for all the reasons that Drew said, I think they're a complete team. I also like their coach. Um, the energy that is going on over there. They're that team this year that feels like maybe they're like a year early on like what they're doing right now. Like they ended up winning their division and getting a home game and you know and things like that. And they kind of feel like that kind of team this year. So I think they're feeling really good. I think they're playing really loose, and I think that'll continue. And yeah, Trevor Lawrence has looked really good. So the other underrated thing about the Bills is that they struggle against the run mightily. And the Jaguars don't have a terrible run game. They don't have a one to write home about, but against a really bad run defense, Seattle didn't really have a run game to write home about until they played against the Niners, who had a bad run defense, and then you know, all of a sudden everyone's talking about, oh, Seattle has a rush game now, and so a run offense that's just okay can look really good and can kind of control a game versus a run defense that has struggled as much as the Bills have. So I'll take Jacksonville as well. Okay, last game that we're going to talk about. Moving on to the what is this? The 2-7 matchup here. Chargers at Patriots. So they're both back in the dance here. And so what do we have as the X factor for this game?
Yeah, I think this game's going to come down to how efficient and how good Drake May can be at the goal line with those short yardage passing touchdowns. He this year has a really bad passer rating when it comes to his red zone. It's like a 52 or something like that. At the end of the day, I mean, this is a game that I think will be decided ultimately by Drake May. You know, I do just believe he has to prove that he can be a winning team. He's 1-2 against teams with winning records. They've only played 3 teams with a winning record this year, and 2 of those games were just the Bills. This is going to be the test to see, is this legit? Are the Patriots legit? Or, were they kind of really coasting off of that schedule that they had? A historically easy one at that. The Chargers, they are truly beaten to shit. That offensive line is basically a practice squad offensive line. And at the end of the day, Justin Herbert has found a way against good teams to continue to play and to continue to keep his team in there. That defense for the Chargers is no joke. So, I mean, Drake May is not going to have an easy day back there. But we'll see. Yeah, I think this X factor has to be Drake May because he feels like the biggest unknown in my book right now in this game. We know who Justin Herbert is. We know how bad his offensive line is. We know how good the defenses are, in my opinion, for both of these teams. What does that leave? It leaves Drake May, right? Like, how well can he lead this offense when it's a legitimate winning team?
Yeah. My X factor is in a similar vein. It's the concept of the strength of schedule because the Patriots have looked really, really good. They also haven't played very many good teams. Now, like, you can take the number 1 seed in the AFC, my Broncos, and you can point to games where you played a bad team and you didn't look good at all. And maybe you got the win anyways, but you didn't look good. The Patriots are blowing those teams out. The Patriots are doing a good job of handling the team that's in front of them. That being said, they have not been tested to the extent of other teams that are in the playoffs. Drake May has had a great year. He's going to get some MVP votes, I would think. He hasn't played at these playoff caliber teams very much. So I think it's going to be a real test. I think if the wild card standings had been flipped a little bit and it was the Bills playing the Patriots or if it was the Texans playing the Patriots, I probably wouldn't take the Patriots. I just think the Chargers are a little too beat up right now. And I think the Patriots are good enough to play well against a good team. And I think the Chargers are good. I just don't think they are the best versions of themselves right now. And I think the Patriots can take advantage of that. And I think Drake May is legit. Whether he's the greatest quarterback in football or whatever for years, like he kind of looked like at times this year, I don't necessarily think that. But I think he's a legit good quarterback. And, Justin Herbert, yeah, we've seen him more than Drake May, but he still doesn't have a playoff win under his belt. So like it's not like we've seen him have these huge great playoff moments either. So that's not saying Justin Herbert's going to shrink under the lights. Drake May is going to, rise to the occasion or anything like that. It should be a competitive game, but I will take the Patriots in the end.
Yeah, I mean that's valid. I'm taking the Chargers in this one. I do just think the strength of schedule thing really does impact again, historically speaking, teams with such a weak strength of schedule are typically surprise outs early in the playoffs. Does that mean this game? Maybe not. Could be the next one. But for a team like the Patriots to have the winning season they did, but against again, like a historically low strength of schedule, um, they played two total unique winning teams this year. Two. And so I think that's where I'm really just like, yeah, you beat up on every bad team, and in the same breath, it's like, so did Mitch Trubisky against the same team, right? He went out and threw for 300 yards and or 350 or something and 4 touchdowns. Like it didn't seem like it was that hard for some teams to beat up on these teams. I don't. I'm taking the Chargers. I think Jim Harbaugh is a winning coach. I think Jim Harbaugh knows how to win in big moments. And I think he's the missing piece for what Justin Herbert's needed. The injuries could absolutely catch up to him, but I do believe Jim Harbaugh is at least the right coach for the Chargers to win.
Yeah, the question you might ask going into this game is like, when is it all going to come together for Justin Herbert? When is he going to finally have what he needs to like when he plays as well as he can play for that to be enough for the Chargers to win a playoff game or two, or even go all the way. I don't think that right now is that time. I think I'll take New England this weekend, trepidatiously. I think I would say is my New England pick here. But it's just that the Chargers, they had an O line that wasn't just okay. Like they had an O line that was going to be really, really good, and now it's really, really bad. And so like that, the difference between that is just kind of what's sticking in my head right now. So I'll take New England, but I would not be surprised if the Chargers were able to pull another one out of this one. So all right, well there you go. There's Wild Card Weekend from our perspectives here. We picked every game. We gave you some X factors. So let's round out the show here with a couple of quick every week segments that we do. First, we'll go to Fan Corner here. So let's start with the team we've already talked a little bit about and go with the Rams. Any parting words before the pounding begins and the Rams must defend against the pound, Matt?
Uh, no words, honestly. There's a few guys who are missing in our game against the Panthers who I would argue are impact players. Um, Prior to the Quentin Lake injury, the Rams were a top 5 defense. After the Quentin Lake injury, the Rams dropped to a bottom 5 defense. We averaged out somewhere in that like top 10, top 12 range. Um, he will be back. He could have played this week, but they're resting him, just being careful. He will be back in this game. That makes a huge difference. Poona Ford was out in the Panthers game. They gashed us up and down the field with those run game. Poona Ford, when he is in, we only give up like a 2.8 yards per carry average. When he's out, it's almost 6. He makes a difference in this game. We didn't have Devontae Adams in that game. The difference that he makes. But on the flip side, we're probably looking to be out with Kevin Dotson. He's our best offensive lineman. And the one thing that they had that was just killing us all game was Derek Brown was killing us from the inside. He's the one that caused that last sack on the last play of the game, or not last play, but the last like real play of the game. And he strip sacked Stafford, and he is probably going to have a field day against our backup guard. So it's one of these things, like there were missing pieces on both ends, and there's going to be different pieces involved in this game. So I don't imagine this game looks similar at all to what the last game looked like. Um, but that's not to say that I'm not scared, and I'm really happy for you guys, and I'm mad that I'm the only one that has to sweat out a game this week, because somehow you both found yourselves as one seed.
Yeah, and just to round out the Rams spot, and maybe we'll call this enemy corner. Be very careful when you jump ship on the Rams, because the last thing that I need the Rams thinking is that they are some kind of underdog who is being crapped on in the press and
Nobody
everyone
believes in
and
us
nobody
except
believes in
Vegas.
us. It would be that's the last thing that I need so I will not be I have not jumped ship on the Rams yet. I won't be jumping ship on the Rams. Especially after all they did was like score a decent amount of points without their number one red zone target for 3 weeks in a row. Even though they might have not looked their best, they still did a lot of good stuff. So be very careful. Be very careful if you are one of those who has abandoned the Rams as the best team in the NFC playoff. Okay, so let's go over now to Broncos land, the first of 2 1 seeds we'll talk about.
Yeah, clinched the 1 seed with a win over the Justin Herbert-less Chargers. Kind of to be expected. Trey Lance couldn't really do a whole lot in that game. Credit to him for being a top 3 pick. But yeah, I don't have a game to talk about this weekend, but so I'm gonna take the time to talk about the season as a whole, and yeah, it doesn't always have to be pretty. This is kind of an ugly season for the Broncos in terms of a game by game basis, yet so many of them ended up being wins. 14-3 is a record that you can't scoff at, no matter how you get there. And the number 1 seed, I mean, that's huge. As Matt pointed out, like having home field advantage is big anyway, but at Mile High in particular, it can be a big advantage. And I want to shout out Sean Payton, who, when the Broncos hired Sean Payton, I was not like super stoked. I wasn't like
Traded for, right?
yeah, right.
Like gave
We
up
had
picks for.
we had to give up a first round pick to the Saints to be able to hire Sean Payton as our head coach. And at the time, it was, coming off the 1 year of Nathaniel Hackett, which was a disaster. The first year with Russell Wilson, after we paid him, or after we traded a lot for him and then paid him, and that was a disaster. And Sean Payton came in. They had a middling year. They cut bait on Russell Wilson. They were in cap hell. And in 3 years, he's turned us into a number 1 seed, with a playoff berth in between. That is not anything I expected any coach to be able to do, and he came in and did it. And he drafted Bo Nix, and that was quarterback 6 in the draft in a top 12 pick, and there was a lot of criticism there, and yet still they're a good match, it seems, and they find a way to win games, and close or not, they're winning. And so look, we'll talk next week when we find out who they're playing in the first round, at how exactly I feel about their chances and all that. But this was already, in my book, a successful year because you're still taking on that Russell Wilson money. You still, like, Bo Nix is still going through growing pains and all that, and you're the number 1 seed. So next year, you got more money to spend. Bo Nix is more seasoned. You hopefully have a couple more playoff games at least that you can draw on for experience and really take off from there. But I'm not saying I'm done on this year, but worst case scenario, I still would call this a successful year for the Broncos.
Yeah, plenty of reason to feel that way. I think so. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to talk about the divisional round matchups too, because I think
I'm hearing like a couple ums and then not much else.
you're
I'll
only hearing
take
a little
fan
bit of
corner
me.
for the Seahawks. Well, I'm thrilled
Well,
with how they captured the 1 seed.
yeah. Amen.
Yeah, I mean, do you agree with that? I'm pretty thrilled with how they captured it.
I think Dallas would agree most of all. And honestly, throttling the Niners on their home field, that must have felt amazing for Seahawks fans.
Yeah, I mean, as an
I,
NFC West guy, I can tell you, throttling the Niners on their home field feels better than almost any other feeling in the world.
and I'm willing to bet that Dallas is looking forward to seeing what this team can do. Oh,
I'm rejoining from my phone. Can you hear me now?
Double Dallas.
your iPad one is still here, like frozen. So we'll see how that looks on YouTube. But
I exited the one because I was still uploading my video, so I think that's done now.
oh,
So maybe
there it
might
is.
only
It's
go.
gone.
Okay. All right. So yeah, look, I wasn't gonna let it get away. We're the 1 seed. I gotta make every effort to talk about it. We did the Seattle Seahawks did a great job against San Francisco on Saturday. Much is being made of them only scoring 13 points against the San Francisco's defense. That was really it's very injured. It's not very good. They dominated them all throughout the game, but when it came down to scoring points, the Seahawks didn't turn it into a lot. But they had first and goal at the 1 yard line. They had Jason Myers miss 2 field goals. I'd say in 9 games out of 10, they hit on at least 2 of those 3 things, right? So that doesn't worry me. Like after watching them the whole season, I don't have reason to believe that in 9 out of 10 games, including any playoff games that could come up, all 3 of those things are going to happen again. So yes, would I have liked it to be whatever that would have worked out to be like 26-3 or whatever? Yes, I would have. But to me, it looked how it looked when you watched the game and you didn't just like scoreboard watch. And it looked like they were just clearly the better team, which is an amazing feeling. So doing it on the Niners home field is a big deal for me. Kyle Shanahan, very similarly to Sean McVay, has tormented Seattle for many years. And it was really nice to be able to go in there, beat them up, get a win, and in an important spot. The Mike Macdonald era has officially kind of started. Like last year was the first year. You never know what to expect, but here in his second year, he's really taken this team to a new level, a new heights, which is really exciting. He there are a lot of really good first year coaches that are coach of the year candidates, and that very much deserve to win. But I think underrated is the second year turnaround that Mike Macdonald's been able to do for Seattle, especially on the defensive side of the ball. The last year under Pete Carroll, the defense was 28th in defensive DVOA in the whole sport, and now they're first. And this is just 2 years later with a lot of the same players. The fact is that, a lot of the same players are on this defense as were on that defense 2 years ago. And it's Mike Macdonald making the difference. So he's coach of the year in my heart. But a lot of first year coaches that, did big turnarounds that have good cases too. But I'm excited to chillax this wild card weekend. I'm excited to, just be chilling. And then I'm ready to take on whoever comes in the divisional round. I think if all my winners from this week win, it'll be the Rams, which it's one of two things. Like just get it over with and face the Rams again in the playoffs, and because you probably will have to do it anyway. Or like I could also just pray the Packers win or the Niners win and the Rams get one more chance to be like eliminated on accident before we'd have to play them. And that would be nice. But if it's got to be the Rams, then which feels like that's where this is leading at some point. They'll have to face each other to move on. Then I'd rather it be in the divisional and just kind of get it over with than make it all the way to the championship and then lose, potentially lose.
I mean, 2 things to consider for you, Dallas. 1, don't overlook the Panthers. You could also face Pound Town. 2, we really, really need the 49ers to lose because I would hate to see what comes of this team when they get Fred Warner back. That scares me heading into the playoffs because he's supposed to be back divisional week. So don't want that. I do not want that.
Yeah, lots of factors to consider, but for the Seahawks, I'm just happy to be here, happy to be in this spot. It's been really fun to watch this team, especially the last month. I've completely flipped on my attitude about whether or not they can compete for a Super Bowl this year in the last month, and it's been very nice to be on that kind of roller coaster where how well they've been playing has forced me to come around to what people might have been thinking already, which is great. So, um, but that's it for Seattle, and that's it for Fan Corner. So, we'll end the show here with Dingers and Stingers, our titular segment here. So, if you're not familiar, this is a segment where the guys will give one dinger, one good thing from the world of sports, and one stinger, one bad thing from the world of sports from the last week, and that's how we end our show this week. So let's start with the bad, and let's go with stingers, and let's start with Drew.
Well, it's, it's always a stinger when the regular season of either of our sports comes to an end. There are, because 14 teams make the playoffs, so there's 18 teams that their season's over. That's a real bummer. Football is one of the best sports to consume because it's, it's mostly one day a week, and those primetime ones you worry about, but it's always a fun thing to check in on. If you play fantasy, that's always fun. Um, and, the playoffs, it's exciting, but I'm going to say, the end of NFL regular season games and, for this podcast, I think we've come full circle because I believe we started last year talking playoff games. So good for us. But yeah, stinger for the end of another season.
Yeah, I'd have to look back on the archives, on the records, and see the exact week we started, but our first episode was talking playoff football. And so, we have come full circle here. It's been a full year of dingers and stingers, which is pretty fun. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely like that is absolutely a stinger. This is like one of my favorite times of year in no small part because of football. There's a guy Max in our group chat for fantasy that texted me. He's like, I watch every Sunday night football game to keep away the Sunday scaries. And I feel that, like, coming off a break, Drew, I'm sure feels this too, but like we work in the education system. Uh, the Sunday scaries coming back after break were pretty big. And what helped fend that off was a nasty, horrid game by the Steelers and Ravens. Watching that game, I wasn't thinking about school. I wasn't thinking about going to work. I was thinking about football. And there's nothing more in this life I like to do than think about football. Love it. So it is sad to see it go. I was going to come up with some sad reason to be a Rams fan, but that honestly is way sadder. Like that is the stinger this week. It's the football season I think is so sweet because it's so short. It is already over. It felt like it just began. We're going to be talking, spring training and starting baseball soon. So that'll be fun. But man, it's what a quick season. It's crazy that we're already here.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. It's this season when it seems like when it starts to kick up and you start to really just enjoy it and you really get into the routine, it kind of shakes you up and it's like, okay, now there's only a few games a week and it's all exciting stuff, but it's like, dang, where am I? Like where is my Kyle Pitts, um, you know, post corner route that goes crazy? Like I'm missing that right now. And
Hmm.
so that's what you miss. But okay, let's end with the good though, and let's go to dingers, and let's go back to Drew for your dinger for the week.
Well, my dinger for the week could be easily guessed. We've already talked about it. The Denver Broncos are the number one seed in the AFC. First
Crazy.
time since Peyton Manning was the quarterback. Winning the division was cool. We talked about that last week, or even earlier perhaps. But being the number one seed is a rare treat you get to experience, and it doesn't always mean lasting success come playoff time, but I hope that it does. It gives you a clear advantage, gives you time to rest and recuperate your guys before your next game, and you get to play at home. It's just all huge, and so for a Broncos team that is really good but has certain question marks, I'll take every advantage I can get.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, getting the 1 seed, being a winning franchise, like all that is the best. I think for me, the dinger this week has to be the shred of optimism we get as Rams fans this week is the fact that we're getting healthier. Um, the kind of weird off streak we've been on since we lost that Seahawks game has kind of felt like it's been in no small part due to us being injured, and injured at some like pretty key spots. And a lot of those are being remedied this week. Potentially all of them, but for sure 2 out of the 3 main ones, or even 3 out of the 4 main ones. So yeah, I mean, we're getting healthy, and this is when you want to be getting healthy, is coming right into playoffs. So that's my dinger. I don't know how more positive I can be. I mean, we throttled the Cardinals, but that's come to be the expectation at this point. So woohoo. Yeah, I'm not gonna say a dinger about Matthew Stafford yet. I'm just waiting to see how that turns out because that could be devastating as well. So we're getting healthy, man. That's all you can ask for as a playoff team.
Yeah, it'll definitely be nice to see some of the Rams get some of their key players back for at the time of year where it really matters. So okay, well that'll do it. I think for this week's NFL episode of Dingers and Stingers, this wild card preview episode. Next week we'll be saying goodbye to 6 teams in our In Memoriam segment, so tune in for that. We'll be previewing the divisional round as well. So come on back for the next round of playoffs. But thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. You can subscribe here on YouTube. Make sure to like this video and share it around. Subscribe here. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on TikTok. If you prefer to listen than to watch, you can listen to us on Spotify as well. You can search us on there. Find us. Our audio versions are available there as well. Leave a good review and do whatever the equivalent of liking is on Spotify. Hit all the good buttons, basically. If you find us somewhere, hit the good buttons. We'd appreciate it. And it really helps the show. So we appreciate everyone for listening and watching, and we will talk to you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Can't wave. My phone's in my hand.